This is an RNZ podcast.
Speaking of great over 40s athletes,
Yeah, my birthday's in 2 days.
Hayden Donneller's in with Midweek Mediawatch. Hayden, I hear, I've never seen it with my own two eyes, but I am reliably informed you're an excellent basketball player.
Well, excellent is pushing it. But most of my limbs still do work at nearly age 40, and I have developed a mid-range shot, which has helped extend my career.
Really?
Yeah, that's free throw line, not very extended. I used to be much more of a bruiser, getting to the cup, really driving, and the explosion's not quite there these days.
Yeah. When does it start to leave, in your experience?
Well, it's really hard to say. It's like when does your child grow? It's
All the time?
All the time. It's leaving as we speak. It's not perceptibly, but trickling out like sand from an hourglass. So are the days of my functioning limbs. To be clear, when I play a social basketball game at 6 a.m, so that it's not on Thursday mornings.
It's 6 a.m.
Yeah, I leave here, I go straight to sleep so I can get up for basketball.
Wow, that's remarkable. By the way, just before we get into the Midweek Mediawatch, I have some weather news just ahead. Kaipara, far north in Whangarei, the severe thunderstorm warning's been extended. Expect thunderstorms followed by torrential rain, people being told to take shelter. How is it where you are if you're in those affected areas? Keen to hear from you. Send me a text 2101 is the number. Right, let's kick off though, Hayden. And we are here an hour earlier than usual.
Yes, 8:30 p.m. If you were listening to Mediawatch on Sunday morning, you would have got the wrong information. Colin saying, see you at 9:30 on Wednesday. Incorrect. If he's wrong about that, what else is he wrong about? What can you trust from that guy?
Who watches the Mediawatch, the other half of Mediawatch?
I think it's Shane Curry, actually.
All right, it's been a big week for media news, starting with the announcement that Trade Me is acquiring half of Stoush Digital. Talk us through this. What do these businesses get out of this deal?
Yeah, Stoush Digital, that's as distinct from Stoush Mastheads. It's the website. The Mastheads is the newspapers. They're separate companies now. They split up late last year. For Trade Me, I think they get clicks from New Zealand's most popular news website, and those clicks can go towards their property arm, their motoring arm, and that helps them because they've faced increased competition from the likes of OneRoof over at NZME and Facebook Marketplace for some of the rest of their products. Stoush, it gets to expand its property section, its property offering. I think Sinead Boucher called it an enhanced property experience that will await readers at Stoush. So that will also get expanded into motoring. Basically, get ready to write some property stories, Stoush reporters.
And in doing this deal, Stoush was very keen to assure people there would be no impact on editorial independence.
Yeah. So there was a video. This story was, funnily enough, broken on Stoush, and there was a video featuring Sinead Boucher and Trade Me's CEO Anders Sko, I think it's pronounced. Oh, I should have checked that. But this is Sinead in the video.
One of the most important things for us every day, obviously, is our editorial independence, and part of choosing the right partner at the right time was finding someone who respected that editorial independence as much as we did and who understood how integral it was for our trust. It's one of the reasons that our audiences come to us every day. It's a huge part of the reason why we have the biggest New Zealand news audience in the country, and we would never do anything to compromise that.
Huh. Indirect shot at NZME?
Yeah, shots indirectly fired. You'd have to have the backstory to really see what she's getting at there, but that's got to be a reference to NZME. It has been subject to a board takeover bid by the billionaire Jim Grennan, lives in Takapuna, and he has pointedly refused to give guarantees to the union, E2, and to current board members that he will not interfere in editorial decision-making. This has been the subject of some concern. The current board has raised concerns that he actually just wants to take over the newsroom. He wasn't that interested in the business. Now, Grennan has fought back against that. He's raised questions to the union, but it's still a swirling question. And this was resolved yesterday is it yesterday, at the NZME shareholders meeting, and he didn't get everything that he wanted. He wanted 3 positions on the board, I believe it is. He just got the one. It was him as director. A compromise candidate, Stephen Joyce, was installed as the chair, but he will get a whole host of other concessions to his agenda, including there will be an editorial board that's set up that has Philip Crump, one of his allies, on it.
Interesting timing by Stuff to make this announcement hours before NZME's annual shareholders meeting.
Yeah, is it an attempt to gazump the news, or is it just coincidence? I'm not too sure. Surely it's an attempt to steal their thunder, or maybe it's just drawing that contrast, that quote from that video, we're going to be editorial independent, we're going to offer editorial independence, maybe this company isn't. Maybe it's an attempt to get people to draw that contrast.
Stuff is really keen to issue these assurances, and understandably, but even if there is not going to be any editorial interference, this is another media organisation economically intertwined with the property sector. So doesn't that at least have an indirect or a potential influence?
Well, you're just in the balance of stories, right? You're just going to see more property stories. You're probably going to have a Trade Me property, branded property section. And if you look at the Herald, you can see this, right? It's really unlikely that real estate agents are calling up Herald reporters saying, don't run this story on a capital gains tax, or don't run this story on density and the need for apartments. But you are, by virtue of having the section, you're going to have a lot of stories about property, about the property market, about the ups and downs of that, and that has the effect of hyping up house sales, perhaps reinforcing our obsession with capital gains. And the other thing that it does, besides just influencing the weight of content and meaning that there's more exciting stories about property, it also creates these links between the journalists and the property industry, right? Because you will have links to real estate agents just integrated into your business, really, or real estate figures, and they're easy to call up and say, what's going on here? And maybe the other industries or other people with other perspectives aren't quite as easy to access for journalists. So there's that as a factor as well. I don't think that there's going to be, of course there's going to be editorial independence. I don't think anyone's going to tell a Stuff journalist, you have to cover this. But there is an influence that it has on the composition of your coverage.
But isn't that something that can be said about every commercial media organisation that has a sponsor, for example? You know, we're talking degrees, I suppose. If you know,
I guess there's a difference between just advertising that might run on the side of a story and something that is actually a really big content centre for your paper, because that's what One Roof. It's a section of the Herald. I guess Trade Me property or Stuff property, whatever it gets called, will be a section of Stuff. This is actually a section that you're driving clicks to. It's part of your broader coverage. It's what you're offering. It's part of what your offering is to the customers. And I do wonder as well, I don't know if it would ever consciously enter a journalist's mind, but this is so much of where their bread is buttered now. There was, at the NZME shareholders meeting, there were shareholders that would stand up and say, we now have a fully integrated competitor. That means that because they have a property arm now, this is integrated in a way that makes them more dangerous to us.
Right. We now have a media competitor that also has a real estate wing.
And there were questions about, can our newsroom survive, because I really value it, if we spin off One Roof, as is one of their proposals? Because is Newsroom actually funding... Is One Roof actually funding the newsroom? Can the newsroom survive without it? So this is how integrated these things are commercially.
Yeah.
And is there a sense of, well, our bread is buttered here? And it's complicated as well because, well, New Zealanders want to read about property. Yeah. So there's an editorial incentive to just write about it there that's not nefarious or anything, but it does end up being quite a big part of your coverage just by dint of the fact that New Zealanders are already obsessed with it. It's a snowball effect.
Good deal economically for Stuff? Well, we don't really know the details of the purchase price, do we?
We don't know the purchase price and all that sort of stuff. Duncan Grieve over at the Spin-Off Media Commentator, he called it a masterstroke, and his reasoning was that this looks like a buyer that has solid reasons to invest, that really values Stuff. And if you think about other media acquisitions, then you have MediaWorks was basically hocked off to an overseas investment fund. This is a buyer that operates locally. It's not owned locally, but it has real interest in what Stuff has to offer as a business. So that looks a little bit better in what has been a pretty depressing landscape for the media than just being hocked off to an overseas investment fund or something.
Although also sort of a sign of how far the media's fallen. I mean, I described the state of play earlier as, being a media company with a property wing. Maybe it's actually a property company with a media wing.
Yeah, and maybe this is the acquisition boot on the other foot, because Fairfax, as it was known then, which is now Stuff, acquired Trade Me back in 2006. It sold it in 2012. Now Trade Me is going back and acquiring some of Stuff.
They bought Trade Me for $750 million in 2006.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that just crazy? Doesn't that seem crazy
A,
now?
the price. B, the fact that Stuff had $750 million. Stuff was sold for $1 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's quite a fall from grace.
Let's stick with NZME. And while this board tussle has been going on, it's launched a new video product, Herald Now. We talked about this last week with Colin. Are there any updates as to how it's going?
Yeah, well, it's mostly a slick operation, so maybe I'm going to be a little bit unfair here, but there have been a few technical disasters, Emil. So on Friday's show, there were some mic issues, and that resulted in the top of the show sounding like this.
It is Friday, the 30th of May. Great to have you company. Coming up on the show this morning, Donald Trump's global trade war hangs in the balance this morning. The courts have put his tariffs on hold.
Where are you? Where are you, Ryan Bridge? Somewhere. I think that the mics weren't working there properly, Emil. Don't adjust your sets.
Oh, I've been there.
We've all been there.
Oh,
I feel
all
there's
been
going to
there.
be some poor tech person that this is the worst day of their life, and now they're on Mediawatch, and I'm sorry to that person. But I'm going to carry on. So the issues continued. There was a political panel between Willie Jackson and Erica Stanford where Willie Jackson's mic was a lot louder, I'd have to say. You could hear all of his rustling of the papers and his breathing, and Erica Stanford sounded like this.
Can a business go out and buy whatever type of machinery it wants at any price and get the 20%?
Well, let's go back to its basic premise, right? What we're trying to do is encourage productivity in this country and more things like machinery that will increase productivity. So as long as we're adding to the stock, that's a great thing.
Okay, we got the volume up in the end there. So a few teething issues, Emil. We've all got teething issues, haven't we? You're looking at me like I'm being very mean.
Is that... Continue.
Okay. Well, I'll note that the political panel that was a part of was actually really good. It was really lively. Erica Stanford, Willie Jackson, and it featured some snappy exchanges. So I'll play one of those as well.
Let's talk about the big issue
What
this
about an
week.
apology?
Yes.
Do you know what the big issue that is this week?
There's 100.
Are you going to roll your boss?
Oh,
Who's going to roll Chippy?
yeah, I'm sick of the
Because
roll.
You'd be great.
Winston's...
I'd vote for you.
My kids think so too.
Oh, you.
It's nice.
It got a pretty brutal review from a former Herald staffer, though.
Yes, Steve Braunius wrote The Secret Diary of Ryan Bridge for Newsroom. That's his employer. He was actually, Steve Braunius, just as context, he was recently laid off by the Herald. And so you could take that in a couple of ways. One, maybe he has a degree of annoyance about this company. Maybe there is what do they call them? Disgruntled. But he also has insights into the newsroom and the company, including from very recent times. So if you're going to look at it through that latter lens, this satirical article, it's pretty acidic. It's pretty striking stuff.
It does feature a recurring character who is a reporter who is increasingly depressed.
Yes, this reporter starts off the article traipsing into the back of a shot and issuing a look of what I think Braunius terms utmost despair. And then this reporter ends up banging his head on his desk, and then later this reporter throws a chair through the window and jumps out after it. These are all on separate days in the week-long diary. So it doesn't happen all at once.
Perhaps implying that morale is low in the newsroom.
I do wonder whether that could be the implication that Steve Braunius is trying to make there, Emil. Now, if that's the case, then it's partly because of the so-called pivot to video, the launch of Herald now, because staffers do draw a direct link between this setting up and taking the money that it takes to set up and the redundancies that have befallen respected journalists. There's Jamie Morton, Nick Jones, Braunius himself, Claire Trevette, political editor Kirsty Wynn, and others. They all left the company, and then there's this investment in the video section.
Yeah, right. And you're suggesting that perhaps those departures would sting less if the journalist could see a great business case for the pivot to video, but that doesn't seem like it's the case.
Yeah, well, there seems to be a lot of scepticism. This is true, but Braunius's article makes it pretty clear. It's just things that I've heard privately anyway from Herald journalists. And there's repeated references to viewer numbers. They start off at 17, rise over the course of the week to 24. Speaking in Ryan Bridges' voice, he says, "You may remember me as the presenter of a morning TV news program on News Hub until my whole network went belly up. I'll be joined by Michael Morrow, who was with me at that place that went belly up. I'll be joined later by Garth Bray, who was at Fair Go, that went belly up recently because it had a failed business model." Now, this is what Braunius is saying, that you have funded this video operation based on and brought in a whole bunch of people from these organizations that just recently went belly up, and there's no real evidence that it's actually going to work economically. We've seen pivots to video before. They haven't worked. Now we're pivoting to video again and bringing in people whose video operations failed to run it.
Do we know what the new administration at NZME thinks of the video operation?
Well, it's not clear. This is a Jim Grennan sort of and his allies. It's not too clear. We do know that Jim Grennan wasn't a fan of the Herald's On the Up series. That was the positive news series that it said that it would run to help lift New Zealand's economic recovery. It said that it would run that in its annual report. Though you'd have to say that even if they haven't spoken out publicly about this video, then maybe it's one of the things where Grennan and his allies might find alignment with the company's existing journalists, because they're outside agitators, they're sceptical about its direction, and, well, this is something that people inside the company are a little bit sceptical about as well.
Inception. All right. Speaking of...
the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Speaking of pivoting to video, former gear from 3 News is being hocked off. This is sad, isn't it?
Yeah, the last great pivot to video, 3 News. They're all of the gear that was in the studio on Flower Street seems to be for sale at Thornton's, the auction house.
Yes. What sorts of artefacts are we looking at here?
Well, there's a few that I've really noted. There looks like an ancient satellite dish with the 3 News logo on it.
I love that logo.
It's one
of the greatest.
When you think 3 News, it's the one that you think of. No one knows what their logos have been since then, but it's that 3 with the red dot and the blue dot.
Also reminds me of like late 90s New Zealand cricket.
Yes, it has the same colour as the Black Caps uniform from back then. It was the teal uniforms. You're absolutely right that maybe it's from New Zealand's teal phase.
Teal phase. Yeah.
I'd check it out if I were you. If you're interested in acquiring a satellite dish with the 3 News logo on it, I don't think it's going to fit in my house.
It's interesting memorabilia. I wonder if
get a desk with the vote written on the front of it. That must be from a general election.
The worm? I wonder if the worm from 2005.
If they had the worm, I think the worm was it TVNZ.
Was it TVNZ? It might have been TVNZ.
I have.
You'd have to
outbid. Will be able to enlighten us on that point. I think it was TVNZ.
You'd have to outbid Peter Dunn for that too.
Yeah, Peter Dunn should just receive the worm. Peter Dunn, there is a rightful owner of the worm desk, and that is Peter Dunn. It's common sense. It's common sense to give it to him.
On to a 3 News veteran now at TVNZ. Look at that symmetry. John Campbell did a couple of interesting interviews with the outgoing and incoming Deputy Prime Ministers.
Yeah, and I'm going to highlight the one with David Seymour because that's the most interesting. It started off pretty prickly. So this is how it started off.
Was surprised we'd accept the interview.
I didn't say that.
I gather you used the C word in reference to how we were supposed to regard you.
I don't think I did that. Come here.
Fair enough. Maybe it was a misunderstanding.
There was John Campbell talking to David Seymour just before they got on camera, but it's always nice to capture some of those frank exchanges, isn't it, Emil?
Sure, John Campbell would never use a word like that.
Oh, I don't think the man's ever sworn.
Yeah. And John Campbell also mentioned that Seymour had brought someone into film their exchange for Acts Media Channel as well.
That's right. Andy is the man. This is him mentioning Andy.
Let's talk about Andy over here. So Andy, hi Andy, nice to see you. So Andy is rolling on this. This is presumably for David versus the media.
Something like that.
Yeah, for your social media page.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so this social media page, this is Act social media channel where all of David Seymour's interactions with the media are uploaded. Does he explain why he does that?
Yeah, he does. He says it's because he got frustrated with the media abusing its power to edit, so not conveying what he intended to say. And Campbell responds to that. He says, well, I've worked at the 6 p.m. news. You get 2.5 minutes. You've got 20 minutes of audio. You pick out a soundbite. You're constrained by the time. And Seymour says he acknowledges, yes, you're constrained by the time, but you're still unfair. You're still misrepresenting stuff. You're still missing out context. And this is how that exchange ends.
But what we're doing here with David versus the media, remember, we're getting 50. I mean, you're one of our stars on the ACT YouTube channel.
I'm super proud.
It's not a good thing.
Yeah.
But in any event,
It's not what?
It's not a good thing,
Isn't it?
No. We're getting people who just want to see it raw and see. And I'm just saying, look, the power to edit has been abused too many times, and we've taken that power away.
I actually think that's quite an interesting point. What do you? The power. The
power
power to edit. It is a big.
that power away.
It is a big. The power to edit is a big power.
And look, he might have a point there, because political journalism, we do gotchas. We do sometimes fail to include context. There's a reason why politicians are drilled on their lines, because they know that they can be clipped out of context and they can be made to look bad. And sometimes that context is hard to get across. And if you have no recourse, if you have none of your own film or whatever, then you don't really have any power to fight back. So maybe that's what he's doing there. But then Campbell's also quite right, that you do have to condense. It's a tough gig. You can't always include everything. Sometimes people aren't going to be happy with how you've portrayed them. And it's not necessarily just that you're being unfair. It's just that you have to edit, and it's a tough job. Now, I'd note as well that David Seymour's own YouTube channel, though he says we're just putting things out raw, it's not exactly a paragon of fairness and balance, because yes, he puts out the raw footage and it's not edited, whatever, but then they're framed under these headlines: David versus the media, Guy Williams, capital letters, wrecked, lunch-obsessed journalist gets schooled, was wearing a badge the same as doing a haka, new media low. These are the headlines that he puts them under. So it's not just him putting them up with David's press conference, June 4, 2025. It's framing them in a particular way to invite a negative response and to make people trust the media less.
Search engine optimized headlines are so amazing to me.
And it's a YouTube tactic though.
Yeah.
Right? You have to have the caps lock.
The caps.
Otherwise people would be getting 50,000 views. But you can't say that it's just a neutral, unedited, dispassionate account of what took place. Just like, media wrecked!
Yeah, the verb.
Even if you're just showing them what happened.
Yes.
That's called framing.
It has to be capitalised. Thank you, Hayden. Who you got for the NBA Finals, by the way?
My head says OKC and my heart says the Pacers.
Right. So that's no help at all.
It's probably OKC. OKC will win, but I hope that they don't.
All right. Hayden Donnell, thank you very much.
Thanks, Emil.